Okay, my name is Jeff Morgan. I'm here at CPAC 2023 in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm here with your state
Representative Cheri Toalson Reisch from Missouri.
And Cheri, you've been telling me that you are probably the most conservative representative in...
So I am, based on my voting record by the American Conservative Union. I received the award from Matt Schlapp last year, and I'm waiting for my 2022 voting record rating to come out. But yes, I am the most conservative female in Missouri.
That's wonderful. And I also want to ask you, because you mentioned a couple of things that I thought were very interesting. You said that you were raised by a single dad. Is that correct?
Yes. So my birth mother left me and my brothers, who were then 3 and 4, and my father, of course, and he raised us as a single dad. And although he later remarried, he was just the best dad. I work at a law firm. We do a lot of divorces and child custody. And I can tell you, dads are as good or better parents than moms. And, I believe in the shared parenting, and you should always start with 50-50 custody. We've had many of these bills coming through Missouri, and we need to get it done. Dads are wonderful parents.
So one thing that you just mentioned that I wanted to follow up with is that we have divorce attorneys in Texas, and they don't want 50-50. They want it to be a little bit imbalanced, and I believe that that's part of the reason for that is so that they can get child support, because in Texas, every divorce has to have a child support order, and you justify that morally if there's an unequal balance. The non-custodial pays the custodial, and it's garbage to some degree. But what are your thoughts about that? Because again, you're an attorney right now. You've been reared by a single father, and you've turned out well. So tell me what your thoughts are.
So I'm not actually an attorney. I'm a legal assistant in a very busy law firm. I'm a certified court administrator, but I've been in the legal system for 42 years and work a lot with child custody and divorce cases. And what I see is it's not only based on, should always start at a 50-50 custody and go from there, but child support, you need to base it on both incomes, health insurance, extracurricular activities and other things. But, in a lot of divorce cases, you don't have to pay child support. If you're truly being 50-50, it should not be mandated.
So as far as divorce, that seems to be a big issue that people look at it two different. Some people have said, well, divorce is not the big issue, it's the conflict. And yet, if I look at the studies, divorce is a big issue. Should divorce be so easy to get in our country right now?
So I have personally been through a divorce with 2 children at the time, and we are required in Missouri to attend a parenting class. A parent should never bash or tear down the other parent in front of the children. You should never make the children take sides. And what I tell the law firm clients I work with is, you are going to be in that child's and that other parent's life for the rest of your life. Even though when they graduate high school, they're going to get married or have grandkids, you need to get along with that other parent and work together.
So you would never recommend one parent cut another parent out of the life because I just want to be the only parent and I want to give the narrative that either the father or the mother didn't care about the child. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And in my specific case, even though my birth mother abandoned us when I was not even 1 year old, we later, would have visitations or Christmas. We would still stay in contact. This was before internet. We couldn't do emails, but we could do phone calls with the other parent. And so, yes, you should never cut out either parent.
We also have in Texas this thing called the Texas Family Law Foundation. And the Texas Family Law Foundation, they consider themselves to be lobbyists for the Texas State Family Bar Association, and basically they also lobby for divorce attorneys. I find it very odd that this organization and their main lobbyists actually have a preferential seat at the governmental table. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so, I do advocate for mediation. People need to sit down and hammer the issues out. But high-priced divorces, some attorneys are just getting rich and continuing and dragging out cases, and that's not good for anyone. When you're spending all your money on attorney's fees, guardian ad litem fees, etc., instead of that money could be going for the health, welfare, and education and benefit of the children.
So what you're saying is that divorces should be a lot less costly, in a sense. I mean, I've known of people that have spent $300,000, some over $1 million, to try to have 50-50 possession within their children's lives. And it seems like there's a lot of times that cases get delayed. Attorneys say, I'm going to fight for you, and then they don't fight for you. Well, we'll do this. We'll have this appeal.
Yes.
It almost seems like it's an entire process to drain parents of their money. And then at the end, they want to make you say, well, we fought the best that we could for you. Have you seen corruption like that?
To a small degree, not on mass scale in Missouri, like maybe seen in other parts of the country.
Like in Texas?
Like in Texas. And I just think if the parents would work together, come to some mutual agreement as far as custody, visitation, they would not have to spend all their money on high-priced lawyers and help the kids with that money instead.
So another issue that I want to ask, and you make some really great comments, very great points. The idea of child support. We know that the best child support is both parents actively involved in a child's life.
Right.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
So the best child support is not a monetary figure.
Oh, no. The joint custody, and whether that's joint physical custody or joint legal custody, they need to be making joint decisions.
And you've also said that in Missouri you have a shared income model versus in Texas we have a winner takes all. So that if you get custody, the other person pays child support to you, but your income does not get counted against that.
Yeah, so in Missouri, we use what they call a Form 14, and it's based on what each parent's income is and which parent provides health insurance or will be required to provide the health insurance, whether they're through their work or some other means, and then a calculation formula on how many days of the month, whether they're every other weekend or 1 week on, 1 week off, whatever that formula may be, that works their personal schedules, the kids' school schedules, and that works for everybody.
It seems to be a lot more fair when both resources are taken into account.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen many people, both men and women, that have had to pay child support. And in order for them to live, they either have to move back home with their parents, they have to live in their car, they live with a friend. Have you heard about that? Do you have that in Missouri like we do in Texas?
So to a small degree, I have heard of situations like that. I work with a shared parenting group in the Missouri Capitol, and they share with me a lot of their personal horror stories of not only getting to spend time with their children or joint custody with their children, but just the economic disaster it does devastates them financially.
And the other thing is that for children in these situations, you focused upon the children. When a child has a parent forcefully ripped out of his or her life, whether it's a mother or a father, that is an act of violence. And that is an act that can create lifelong trauma. And when a child suffers that, is it any wonder that they get bitter with society and may become the next generation of rebels? I think that our courts, the way that they have done a lot of these things, by ripping a parent out, by almost marginalizing a parent, making them a visitor, are a lot of times responsible for what we see in society and our legislators that allow this to take place. Do you have any opinion on that?
I do, absolutely. So when my personal story, which is very difficult to talk about in the public, when I went through a divorce with my children, I actually voluntarily put them in counseling. I think mental health is so important. I even put myself in counseling just to maneuver through a difficult divorce. There's no good divorce. And the other thing, these children, they're suffering so much. And a lot of people never know this, but when I was about 5 and my brothers were 7 and 8, our non-custodial mother tried to kidnap us. So there is parental kidnapping. My law firm has worked a case where the mother absconded the baby and flew out of state, and it took us 5 years to find that child. And now the girl, the baby girl, is now in full custody with the biological father.
Wow, that's quite the story. But we hear those stories again and again and again. And I'm glad to talk with you about this, because you are presenting in a very small portion the underbelly of the industry. And the divorce industry is an industry.
Yes.
The lobbyists down in Texas, they lobby for their clients, which are the divorce attorneys. They know that by lobbying for bills that do not create equality, they are creating tensions that divorce attorneys can exploit for money.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about possibly capping attorney fees?
So I hadn't thought about it that way. I do know trial attorneys and attorneys, I know under the Missouri bar, you need to really watch them. But some of the things, I think if people would just maybe do more mediation and try to hammer this out and not drag out these divorces for years and years. My personal divorce took 3 years, and that's an extremely long time to be under stress and pressure, trying to finalize, whether it's not just children, but property and assets, et cetera, et cetera. So it really takes a toll on families, and it shouldn't have to be that way.
So I'm going to ask you a question that maybe you haven't thought about too much as well. I was talking with an Orthodox Jewish person today, because his wife also has written a paper on this. He's also an attorney. He works for a law firm. But he was saying that in the Jewish religion, under the Orthodox Jewish religion, when you get married, for example, a man can give his wife a certificate of divorce, but if she doesn't accept it, they're not divorced. They may hate each other, but they're still married. And the reason I say this, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is because when you look at marriage, the first marriage that I look at is in the Bible. So marriage has a religious component. Why is the state interfering in a religious institution? Because a lot of Christians say, look, God created marriage. Society benefits from marriage, and the marriage is what ties a father and a mother together for the benefit of the children. But if you're a Christian, you enter into marriage and you say, look, I've taken a vow before God. The vow should have at least as much weight as a prenuptial. And to me, it seems like the state is intruding, and whenever the state intrudes in many instances, it causes disaster. Do you have any comments about that whole thought? Have you thought about that at all?
Right. So, marriage is biblical, and God sanctifies marriage as being between one man and one woman in the Bible's opinion and in mine. And it says God does not like divorce, but in some cases you do need to grant a divorce decree certificate. But I've also heard in a lot of conservative states, why should the government sanctify even marriage? Why do you need to go get a marriage license from the government if you can just get it from your local minister or whatever? So those are some deep topics.
Right. In Alabama, they got rid of the marriage license. I don't know if you're aware of that. Yes. No. And I think it's a very good thing, because as you've mentioned, like even if some of the Supreme Court decisions, Obergefell versus Hodges, for example, they talk about what a great high elevated state marriage is, therefore how can we deny same-sex couples, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they've also talked about marriage as being a fundamental right. Do you need a license for a fundamental right?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't have a black and white answer on that, but I think different people have different opinions on that.
Right, and I think that exactly. I hear what you're saying. We don't need a license from the government yet to breathe, but it may be coming.
Liberty. I'm about smaller government. Cut the red tape and less government in our lives.
And I think that one of the areas that we have to have smaller government is in the marriage and divorce process. When government intrudes into a family, when government is stating certain things, and the state has a very legitimate purpose for recognizing, acknowledging marriages and stuff like that. But when they are benefiting from the industry, because as you know, with child support, for example, it runs through the Office of the Attorney General. And what we do in Texas anyway, we want to have higher child support orders, because by doing that, the Office of the Attorney General Child Support Enforcement Division gets money for the state,
of course.
federal funds and everything else.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's called Title IV funding. So basically, like Texas, we brag. We brag about how we are number one in efficiencies, and we get a lot of money from the federal government. So what it does, it creates a conflict of interest. Why is the government encouraging these things? The government's purpose should be to encourage marriage because it's good for society,
Yes.
and should be the encouragement of the reduction of divorce.
Yes.
So, and again, like you said, there are some divorces that are necessary.
Yes.
Many could be saved if we had a longer waiting period.
Yeah.
If the government said, hey, these people want to get married in a covenant marriage, we need to honor and respect that.
Right.
And help them and support them. And as we support our families, we support a stronger society. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think it takes the nuclear family with the father, mother, and the children works best in society. And you had talked earlier about marriage licenses, whether they're needed or not. And in Missouri, we do not have common law marriage, but there are some states in the country that recognize common law marriages.
Right. And we all in Texas also recognize common law marriages. My disappointment is, however, that for many people who want to get married in a church under a Christian ceremony, and the pastors, I address pastors too, because I do not believe they should be agents of the state. They should be say, we are ministers of God, and this is a holy ceremony that we're going through. This is the most important, crucial, essential unit in our society.
Right.
And we want to bless it. We want to see it stay together. And again, we're not saying get rid of divorce, because there are some divorces that are necessary, as
Right.
tragic as they are.
Right.
But at the same time, we want to say what's better for children. It's always better, for the most part, for children to come from an intact family
Yes.
with natural mother and father,
Yes.
surrounded by strong relatives, and a society that values and supports marriage.
Absolutely.
So as far as any last words that you want to say, because we've talked about, we met you at the booth over the nuking the nuclear family.
Yeah.
And in the picture, we have 3 people, but 1 person was missing. And the person who was missing was the father.
Right.
Because government policy right now and our courts have often, it would seem, to be targeting the removal of the father from the family so that you could be eligible for government benefits.
Well, and that's what I've said for years. I mean, why get a father into the home when you get more government money, subsidies, food stamps, Medicaid, et cetera, but if you marry or bring the father into the home, it counts against you, and it shouldn't be like that. They should keep the nuclear family together. And I just have to say one last thing is, in Missouri, we've been trying to fight for shared parenting laws for at least the last 7 years that I've been in the legislature, and we need to just get it across the finish line, because moms and dads should always be having a 50-50 starting point.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any final words? If anybody wants to contact you, follow you, I know you gave me your number because it's public information, but if
Yeah.
people want to say, hey, we're behind you, we want to show our support, how do they follow you? How do they get in contact with you?
Well, it's Cheri Toalson Reisch. You can look me up on Facebook, or cheri.toalson-reisch@house.mo.gov is my email.
Okay, wonderful. I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
you.
It was a pleasure to meet you. We've got mutual friends, and I just
Yes.
want to say thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.